All right, welcome in here, guys. It is another edition on this, I can't believe it, Wednesday, January 8th, 2020. Another edition of the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show. It is powered by WagerTalk.com. It's all about college hoops here, and nobody better to speak with than our good friend Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com. And conference play continues to roll on through. Big night last night on the card. We'll review some of those games. We'll, of course, take a look at some of the featured matchups tonight. Another loaded card, a lot of great opportunities, a lot of value on the board here tonight, Ralph. But I got to tell you, there is don't know what to make of Virginia last night, Ralph. I really, every time I don't think they're going to score, they don't score. And then every time, I think they're not going to score again, they end up, not scoring, but they can't hold anybody from scoring. Very strange situation with Mr. Bennett and the defending national champs in Virginia here. Can't quite get a handle on it, Ralph.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I had the first half under, so obviously I lost by a couple points. And, you're looking at a situation where, their offense was never elite. It was just good enough to score more than their opponents. But, we've seen, you have to remember that the opponents year after year now see the zone more and more often. So when you have the same coaches back and you have kids that are perhaps a little more experienced, kids that have seen it multiple times, you get situations last night where, Boston College ended up shooting 57%, from 2-point range. They got some good shots. Yep. Yeah, they struggled from 3-point range, going 4 of 17. But, there's some holes in the Virginia defense if you can expose them like they did.
Yeah, and there's a few programs like that out now. One of them, of course, tonight too, we'll get to because he's just fit to be tied. Is Roy Williams, and we've talked about North Carolina's problems are heard. I mean, he's saying it's the least talented team he's ever seen. I mean, he seems to be fit to be tied here. But teams like Virginia, North Carolina, Ralph, we've got to, especially as conference plays moves on, we've got to realize this is probably more wide open this year than we've seen come March Madness. There's just not those super loaded packed teams, especially blue blood wise, that that were in years past.
No, when you look at the nation's best teams, Duke, Kansas, Michigan State, they all have multiple losses. Duke doesn't have multiple losses. I mean, Gonzaga's the AP number one. Well, they're not going to lose the rest of the year, so they're going to hold on to the number one. They're going to be the number one going into the tournament. So if they decide to give them, a number one seed, but, I think the Zags proved it playing, they didn't duck people. I mean, but you really only have top 50 foes. Mm-hmm. You beat Arizona, you beat Oregon, you lose to Michigan. Is that enough to get a 1 seed?
Right.
Probably because you're the Zags and you've been there and done that. So, you're going to run the table. I don't think you lose. Your only game you're potentially going to lose. BYU on the road could be close, scrappy, and St. Mary's on the road. Other than that, you're going to be, you're going to be 28-3, or you're going to be 27-4, and you deserve that number one seed.
Yeah, and you are pretty much what you have been forever with Mark Few. I mean, that's pretty much what we've come to expect from Gonzaga heading into there is being a number one, number two seed. But it's not it's just not the same old here with a lot of these other teams. Like you said, a lot younger, and it's kind of hard to replace, especially some of these upper class teams. And you saw it last night. Hell, you don't have to look any further than Iowa last night too, Ralph. The thing that stuck out to me last night with a lot of these games, Ralph, was how, man, home teams so far in conference play. I'm looking at the board last night, and outside of maybe 5 games, it was home teams all night long, Ralph. It seems to have been like that. Really big-time home edges here early on in the month of January. Oh, looks like Ralph's frozen on me over there, so let me make sure we got him in there. We'll get Ralph back. Hold on. Come on, Ralph. You can talk to me. Let's see here. Nope. Ralph's still frozen on me? All right. Oh, hold on. We'll get Ralph back here. I promise. I know he's here. I know he's here someplace, Ralph. Come on, Ralph. Come on. Yeah. And Ralph is not here. No, is he here? I have no idea. So hold on. We'll see if we can get Ralph back on the call. There we go. Try it now. Boom. And just
sorry
like
about that, guys.
That's all right. Ralph is back over here. I was holding the fort down, Ralph, for you there, but I was mentioning how ridiculous it is for home teams. The thing that stuck out to me on the card last night was how many home teams, even the first couple of weeks of conference play here, a lot of home team advantages. I mean, Nebraska takes down Iowa last night at home. BC, home. It's Providence Marquette was a million overtimes there. But the even Air Force, a lot of home teams seem to be enjoying that home court advantage early on.
Well, we've talked about it. People not playing many road games. Ohio State went to Maryland, the home team wins. Penn State goes to Rutgers, the home team wins. Unfortunately, I'm on a run in college basketball where my last decisions are those bad ones. And in the Big East, it's the only place that didn't hold true, where Villanova beats Creighton and Providence beats Marquette. So, we're going to have that situation more and more. I mean, last night, we talked about Kentucky playing their first true road game. They got by Georgia, but it certainly was a battle. So, the upsets, 12 upsets yesterday by dogs of 2.5 or more.
Yep, it was an interesting night on the court there. That is for sure. There was also, of course, some big name performances there last night, and New Mexico there at the end of the night taking on Fresno State with Vance Jackson. And listen, Air Force, a lot of people were back and said Utah State couldn't lose, but yeah, they lost, Ralph. They lost big time over there to an Air Force team that's not only in football seems to be holding their own, not too bad in basketball either.
Joe, Utah State was picked to win the Mountain West.
Yeah.
They are now 0-3 in the Mountain West, losing to UNLV by 17, losing to San Diego State by 9, and losing to Air Force by 19. And, I don't know what's going on with Craig Smith there. You look at Utah State, it's not as if, though, their key guys have started. They've had 4 guys start all 16 games, including Sam Merrill. So it's not as if, though, you had a lot of injuries. They're trying to work out who that 5th starter is, and they switched people. But, when you are a team that went 28-7 last year, you're returning multiple starters, including your star. You haven't had a lineup issue where you've had 4 guys start every game this season, and yet you've lost all 3 conference games.
Yep.
That's a team I just don't understand.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's kind of a head scratcher there, but Ball State, we've talked about them in the past, taking on Buffalo in that win. Big job by Teague there, 25 points, 3 steals, 2 blocks, Ralph. Also 9 boards. So and even Drake, Drake all of a sudden putting together a couple of pretty impressive wins there back to back.
Well, Drake's been that team that's been the covering machine. So, coming in at 12-4 this year after their 24-win season, or 20-plus win, it may not have been 24. They lost to Bradley on the road, but home wins against Indiana State and Loyola is impressive.
Yes, it certainly is. And some of these other big takedowns, big covers there last night. Of course, we talked about Air Force there and Utah State. Big 26.5 point there, 7.5 point line. How about Quinnipiac, Ralph? Still continuing to dominate. Now, this is a team sneakily you've mentioned a few times here on the show. You're really starting to like this team a little bit.
Well, they're a team in the MAAC that has enough offense. They don't play very good defense, but they're a 3-point shooting team. Mm-hmm. They're one of the best 3-point shooting teams. So they live by the 3, die by the 3. So you just have to look for those matchups when they're facing teams that aren't good defensive teams against a 3-point shot.
Yeah. How about that? Another one of these games where the over came into play, Ralph, but how about this Houston Temple game there last night? Were you a little bit surprised on how much scoring you had there in that game?
Well, not really. Because we've talked about, Temple with Aaron McKee there now. They are a top 30 team as far as Temple goes.
Yeah.
people don't realize that they've changed schemes from Fran Dunphy last year. And we know Houston, while they play slow, Houston is an elite offensive team. They're number 10 in efficiency. They get a lot of rebounds. They're leading the country in offensive rebounds. So they're a team that, they shoot well. They get a lot of layups. That's how you become efficient. If you miss a shot, you get the offensive board and you lay it in, and that's exactly what they did. Mm-hmm. But the weird thing is Temple's not that slow-paced team anymore, and that's just an adjustment people have to make.
Yep, and maybe another, to me, mind-blowing here, Ralph. Texas A&M at home, and the total was 127, Ralph. Now, we know Texas A&M mostly can't hit water if they fell out of a boat. Bit of a problem there under, first-year head coach, new program, new philosophy, new everything else. But hell, Ralph, they went 23 points under at 127 there last night. So kind of an interesting situation with this team. But they won. They got a victory over Ole Miss.
Well, you look at A&M, and they haven't reached 70 points since their opener at Northwestern State. So it's nothing new. Your tempo's in the 300s, and your effective field goal percentage for Buzz Williams and the Aggies, 333.
Oh, God, you're starting with 3. I know it's bad.
That's, those are SWAC numbers or MEAC numbers. So,
true.
Their 3-point percentage in the country, dead last.
Wow.
353 shooting the 3 points. So, what are you going to do? You're going to slow it down. You're going to play defense. And, as long as you hold teams to 50 or less, like they did Oregon State, they did, Mississippi yesterday, you're going to lose. Yep. You're going to win.
You're going to win is right, big time. So, well, congratulations there to get that victory for him, Ralph. And we'll take a look at some of the market games here and see what's going on. Another interesting card here on tap tonight. Some big name teams. I'd be remiss, of course, if I didn't mention the fact that I looked so good with my Georgia pick last night, Ralph, for one half. In fact, if I would have turned the television off and stopped watching, I probably would have went to bed really happy thinking, aha, I knew it. Georgia turned a corner, and Kentucky is the fraud I thought they were. And then the second half happened. I guess when you turn the ball over 14 times to Kentucky, even if you're at home, you're not going to win many games. You're not going to hold Kentucky down like that.
Yeah, they're too good of a team. Georgia's. We talked about it. Georgia's a young team, but they have an offensive player. But you still have to play. You still have to play a quality game to beat a quality team. It's not. It's just not going to be that you're at home and Kentucky's making their first road start. You still can't be turning the ball over, and you have to shoot a decent percentage.
Yeah, 14 turnovers in the second half, by the way. Please, throwing up just even thinking about it. All right, so before we take a look at the market here, Ralph, let me just double check here. Do we have a trend or an angle here tonight that you are applying to any of these games on the board?
Well, we always have trends and angles, and it's games that we're going to look at. New Orleans isn't a team we talk about often, but for an added board game, they're now 13-1-1 over under their last 15 games. They've completely changed pace, and Fairfield the exact opposite. Fairfield 1-10 over under at home. Looking at some teams, Alabama has now covered 7 straight, playing that we've talked about, 15-4-1 against the spread. UMass 2-11 against the spread at home, and let's end it with Oklahoma. Oklahoma now 1-8-1 their last 10 games against the spread.
Interesting. I'm gonna look at that game too. I gotta tell you, Ralph, looking at the markets here and the board, there is one game that I was looking forward to watching here tonight. Love the Big East, and we got St. Georgetown here, and it's interesting from a market perspective, but also from a game perspective, because I do think this is a really good litmus test for both teams here tonight. But both of them 0-2, I believe, straight up in league play. Neither of them, I'm sure, wants to drop to 0-3, but St. John's has been pretty profitable this year, 9-4-2 against the number, pretty impressive here. And what are they, 6-1-2 against the number in their last 9 alone? The number itself, -4, is kind of staying steady here. Opened up at Georgetown -4. Stayed true, but man, is the total jacked up here. 149.5 it opened up with, Ralph. I'm seeing 155, even a 156 out there across the board.
Well, they were a fast team with Chris Mullen. They were a top 20 team. Mike Anderson wants them to be the quickest team out there.
Interesting. Yep.
This is the guy that was at Arkansas, was at Missouri previously. He has them right now shooting at the 6th fastest pace in the country. So, he comes down, wants to shoot the ball. And Georgetown, under Patrick Ewing, they're a top 25 team. So you truly have 2 of the top 25 teams in the country that want to shoot the ball as soon as they get it.
Yeah, it's and you're right. So this is a big game tonight for the Big East. Another interesting game, Ralph, that I'm seeing some movement too. Kind of flipped on us here a little bit. And two teams we've talked about. How about the St. Bonaventure? How about the Bonnies taking on George Mason at home? Now, George Mason opens up as a -3 favorite in this game, Ralph, but yeah, the money's pouring in here on St. Bonnie's, man. A lot of St. Bonnie's backer. I'm seeing -1 St. Bonnie's, or at the very worst, pick 'em now. So about a 3.5, 4-point swing here since the open.
Well, Mason comes in 11-3, but they played the number 305 schedule. So, it's what have you gotten? And then you look at what they did against their top 3 teams. Well, those are the 3 losses, losing by 23 to Maryland, losing by 30 to TCU, and losing by 13 to VCU at home. So they've proven that, yes, they can be a bully and beat bad teams, but against anyone, their only win against the top 120 team was they took care of New Mexico State in a neutral setting, and that was when New Mexico State was missing a few starters. So understand the line move. Bonaventure comes in 9-5, played a tougher schedule, and they had a bad loss to Siena and maybe a bad loss to Ohio early. But when a team loses its first 3 games, to me, it's 2 different seasons. They were 0-3. They lost those games. Since that time, they've been 9-2 against a much more difficult schedule.
Yeah, and one more game here. Ralph seems to be getting an awful lot of love. We haven't talked much about the SEC. A couple of games here tonight, but one, Arkansas is going to be traveling to LSU to take them on 9 o'clock here tonight. They opened up as a 4-point favorite, but all the money, everything seems to be coming LSU, up to 6.5, even a 7 out there, Ralph, in this game. We started off the year talking about LSU a little bit here, and there hasn't been a lot. Arkansas, are you shocked that all the money's going towards LSU? Arkansas is not getting any love here?
I am a little bit. Arkansas hasn't played a tough schedule, and Eric Musselman probably scheduled it that way his first year in. I don't know if they made any changes or they backed out from some. They've only played 2 road games. They lost to Western Kentucky, a game that went back and forth, and then they did beat Indiana right before the New Year's break, between Christmas and New Year's. So going into Assembly Hall and winning is a big deal. I think they're basically even. So, I am surprised the money has come in on LSU.
Yeah, I was with you. That was kind of a little strange there. I wasn't sure what was going on. But there are some great games here, some opportunities to back a dog, Ralph, here on the card. Is there one that you are looking at here that you like a little bit more than the others?
Yeah, well, sometimes when you're handicapping games and you go through a stretch, I'm just going to be brutal honest. It's been such an uneven college basketball season for me. And, even last night was just poor. And why do you get in those bad runs? Well, you have 6 or 7 games in the mix and you make the final determination and you put on the few wrong games that lose and you leave off the games that won. So I can tell you this is the game that I had on my board to release and I took it off. So it's an automatic winner.
Wow.
And so, I laugh at myself, but it's just, I've been doing this 30 plus years, Joe.
Oh, yeah.
And, it really is just a lesson for all these new bettors the frustration doesn't end. I mean, when you're doing it as a living and, you're giving out plays and you're betting those plays and, the wins and losses matter, it's nights of no sleep and it's brutal and it's trying to change things. And even if you're doing 30 years and you're a veteran at it, there's still so many ebbs and flows that, you have to sometimes joke at yourself. But I'm going to be on UNLV against Boise. As I said, this was one of my top 3 plays, and I ended up dropping it off. Otzelberger from South Dakota State is a great coach. This team started 4-8, but they played a very difficult schedule early. Now what's happened? They've reeled off wins against Eastern Michigan, Utah State, and Air Force. Their defense is playing well, and they play slow tempo, and I think they can keep it within the number. And, wouldn't surprise me. The team went into Fresno State and won in double overtime early. I like UNLV plus the points.
UNLV plus the points it is, and I got to tell you, the other game too here, Ralph, on the card, I can't trust him. I can't back him, and it's not as much a big supporter of Pittsburgh as it is that North Carolina is a mess. And everything coming out of Roy Williams' mouth right now, he is about as frustrated as it is. Called his kids out publicly on his radio show, telling everyone that this is the least talented team he's ever had at North Carolina. And I get it. You lose Cole Anthony. You've had injuries left and right, but these kids can't do anything right. I mean, it's got to be a little tough walking on campus right now, as your coach said that you pretty much are the worst he's ever coached. So I don't know. I mean, Pittsburgh, the money seems to be coming towards Pittsburgh. They opened up as a 5.5 favorite there in North Carolina, and I see it down to 4. And would I be shocked if Pittsburgh scored more points in this game tonight than North Carolina? Absolutely not, Ralph. So I'd be willing to put a few bucks down on Pittsburgh tonight and back them as a dog.
Yeah, I understand the philosophy. That scares me a little bit, Joe, just to be honest, is, Pittsburgh's only played 2 road games. One was Robert Morris, which doesn't count because it's, right there in the city.
Robert Morris.
And the other was Louisville. But I look at North Carolina and, I guess the best example for a coach berating a team is Washington State. They get berated all the time.
And he still only won 2 bowl games. So
sometimes they bounce back and play well for him, and sometimes they don't.
That's my point. This is either going to go one of 2 ways. There's no middle ground here, guys. It's either going to be a blowout or they're going to get crushed.
I think it very well could be a live betting situation to see what's going on the first 10 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
See how the North Carolina, the kids have done. I mean, you're not without Anthony. You still have Bacot. You've only had 2 players start for all 14 games. So,
right.
You have no cohesiveness. You were 5-0 and now you're 8-6. So, you've lost 6 games in the mix. Your only wins are against UCLA and Yale. In the last 5. So the line, obviously, I mean, we're talking a situation that, if this is last year, what was, I'm trying to look at what the lines were for last year.
It had to have been, it would have been.
I'm pulling them up right now. So last year, North Carolina laid 23.5 at home.
There you go.
And laid 10 at Pitt. So you have an 18-point adjustment. So there's not value in the line, but you just think the situation behooves a play on Pittsburgh because the value is obviously gone.
Right.
Much worse than last year. Yes, well, the line is 18 points less than last year. We know that. It's in the line. So, like you said, I agree with you. We could go either way. Your Pitt side could cover, or North Carolina still has talented players. I mean, the 3 stars and the 4 stars that weren't in the starting lineup are still damn good players there. So it'll be a game I'm interested to watch, and it may be a game I very well live bet, seeing how the first 10 minutes goes.
Good job. Yeah, that's a great point there, too. Also, a great angle, guys. Way to look back at that a year ago to date here. Check out exactly what those lines were, and we know North Carolina graduated everybody and kind of sent an entire roster to the NBA. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out tonight. And a couple of our featured games here tonight, Ralph. One I know a lot of folks are looking at, and it's interesting from a market standpoint. Kansas taking on Iowa State. Now, Kansas opened up as a 6.5-point favorite in this game, Ralph. 70% of all the bets heading towards Kansas in this one. However, that line is down to 4.5 here, Ralph. So the money is coming in on Iowa State in this one. Obviously, the much bigger bets at this point. So with the majority of the bets on Kansas, but the money coming in on Iowa State, where do you lie on this one? Is it too many points, maybe, or do you still like Kansas?
Yeah, Joe, that's a good point for our viewers to know. I mean, when a line moves, if a casino could legitimately have 90% of money on one side and not move a game.
Right. If
they're getting $10 and $20 bets from Joe Public people, they're not concerned. They know the line is where it is. They're not going to move a line. They get one bet for, it doesn't even have to be a max bet. It could be a $5,000, $10,000 bet from a player that they respect, and the line moves, and then the other casinos follow. So, when you're talking about those percentages, that doesn't necessarily correlate to what the line move is. I look at this spot in Kansas as my number 2 power rated team right now. They are playing absolutely elite shutdown defense. And, while revenge is so overused, I will say that, Kansas dominated the Big 12 for how many years? And while they didn't win the Big 12 and Texas Tech won it, Kansas did get knocked out of the Big 12 championship by Iowa State. So I do like the Jayhawks in this spot to go into Iowa State and pull out the win. And, this is an Iowa State team. Hilton Coliseum used to be one of the best home edges in sports. Well, let's see. They got run out against Iowa 3 games ago. Then they beat Purdue, Fort Wayne, big whip. And then they lose to Florida A&M at home. They lost 3 out of 4. They lost 2 home games. They were in a battle against TCU in overtime on Saturday. I think Kansas's defense shuts them down.
It's, to me, this is all about, Kansas at that number. I got no problem with them. I think the under might also be worth a look at here. Even away from home, Kansas is only averaging, Ralph, around 63 points per game. They're only giving up around 56 on the road. I think they're going to make life difficult for Iowa State. I think they're also going to play a very slow-paced game in this one. So I don't know that either team will break 70. So I do think maybe the under at 146, 145.5 might be worth a look as well.
Can't argue that at all.
We've got, of course, another Big East matchup here, though. Very disappointing matchup here. Well, half of it is disappointed, I can tell you that, as you take a look, Ralph, at Xavier and Seton Hall. And Xavier, I don't know, a lot of people, Ralph, I'm not sure where you had him preseason here, but there's an awful lot of people going, what a Big East disappointment. Just 4-10-1 against the number. And, people expected them to be a little bit better than they are. Seton Hall, listen, what are we going to say? 10-4, I believe, against the number. They have been way more profitable than Xavier. And this game here, Ralph, we're looking at, it's not a crazy, and it was moving. Let me make sure I got this number correct. Where I'm quoting it, but we're looking at, it was 2.5 for Xavier, and believe it or not, Ralph, they continue to get some money coming their way. Now, Seton Hall is always a question of who's going to play and who's not going to play, but it's up to 3.5. But the total, Ralph, 133 to now 140 is the number in this matchup.
Well, everyone's playing. Miles Powell is back. Miles Powell played well with their win at DePaul and against Georgetown. They're still without their big guy, Sandro Mamalovsky. Excuse me, I don't even know how to say it. But he broke his wrist. He's out 6 games. He's out another still couple weeks. So they know they're not going to get him. He was their second leading scorer when he got hurt. So with Seton Hall, it is what you're going to get. They play elite defense. They're a physical team. They are a good 3-point shooting team. They're a solid defensive team. And Xavier, like you said, I think I had Xavier. I had him top 20, I'm sure. And they're probably now closer to the 35, almost the 40 range. And you look at their losses, Florida lost, not bad, but we know Florida was up and down the whole time.
Right.
Wake Forest loss was bad. Villanova lost, not bad. But it's what they did against their other competition. 2 overtimes against UConn, yeah, they got to win. Overtime against Missouri, yeah, they got to win. They're very close to being, a 10-5 team, let alone the 12-3 team. But they're still playing decent defense to me. And, this is a total that opened up, I think, 133, and it's actually gone up 6 points. So there are some people betting the overs. I don't understand that move. I even leaned under this morning or on last night on the overnight line. So, I lean under with 2 check marks now with the total where it is.
Yeah, it's a tough game to go with, and I agree with you. I don't think there's going to be – and I don't know where the points are coming here, though. This is going to be tough. Xavier at home, Seton Hall on the road. But, Seton Hall just seems to be a team to me, Ralph, so far this year. Certainly against the number. You're going to give them 3.5, 4 points on the road. And you've probably got the best player on the court. So this is the kind of spot where, at least so far this season, we've seen them deliver a maybe not a win in the game, but certainly a cover. So, I might be more inclined to take the 4 points in this one.
Well, you look at the road games, and they beat St. Louis and they beat DePaul handily. But then they lost to Iowa State and Rutgers by 10 and by 20. So that was, the thing you have to remember there is that
the injuries,
Rutgers is when Powell got hurt. So
right.
the 20-point loss to Rutgers, Powell only played 15 minutes. And then they beat Maryland without Powell in the next game, which is by far their best win. I mean, that was an impressive win. And I think we talked about this before. Beating Maryland, holding them to – you only scored 52 points because there was no offense. We talked about it without Powell being under. But I think that gives the team confidence when you can beat a Maryland, a top 20 team, and you're without your star player and maybe the best player in the conference. That gives the rest of the team a lot of confidence moving forward.
Yep, yeah, it's going to be an interesting matchup there, and of course, some other great matchups here on the board here tonight, guys. Florida State, Wake Forest, and even San Diego State, who refuses to lose here, Ralph. They got a game against Wyoming tonight. So across the country, is there a best bet you're going to throw out this way here on a game either we talked about or didn't talk about?
I'm going to throw out a system I have first for a situational play, Joe.
Go.
And it's not a team that a lot of people can bet on, and it's a team you and I talked about before, and it involves Army. But it's not a team; it's a system. So it means any team in this angle. And I look in January specifically because your schedules are so weird. So when you get to January and you're on 1 day rest, and you lost your last game at home, and you lost the last time you played this team. So Army lost as a home dog on Monday night to Colgate. They have 1 day rest, and they lost to American last time they played them. When teams are in that role like Army is, since 2010, they've only gone 17 and 30, 36.2%. So the system says to play American over Army tonight.
Interesting. I like that. I like that system, and I like Army. It was funny. I was looking at, I believe, let me make sure I got the right game there, but there was the team that Army played there, and we were laughing, was Colgate, in fact, and I caught a little bit of that game, and Army ended up covering that game. They lost, but they ended up covering that game, getting 7.5, 8 points, and you've got a Colgate team tonight taking on Loyola, Maryland over here, and
it's Hold on, Joe. Hold on. You need to get a life if you were watching American Army and Colgate.
Well, it was so funny because you and I talked about the Army and we talked about the Patriot League. We don't get to see it. So sure enough, on Fubo TV or whatever it is, what's the game on? Army versus Colgate. So I'm like, all right, let me spend a couple minutes and just, let me be interested to see, how good could Army be in the basketball, right? So Actually, they were pretty good, but I was also pretty impressed with Colgate. But I wasn't that impressed with him. Loyola's getting 10 points here, Ralph. Now, I know Loyola, Maryland, not exactly, murderer's row here, and it certainly has been a fan base that's kind of been like the little stepbrother here to Maryland. But double digits there seems a little bit crazy for me. Plus, Colgate's only 3-3 against the number at home. Laying double digits against Loyola, is it me, or is it worth a couple of bucks to take the points there?
Well, again, the Patriot League is one I don't cover, although the system says in the Patriot League. So I'm leaving that one to you. I have not turned, although we got to give a shout out to Fubo because they show Sports Grid. So
yes, they do. Exactly. Yeah.
So
some great games. Yeah.
They do have a lot of games now. It's amazing when I go and look at and I'm reading into the media guides how many games they actually cover. So hey, hats off to Fubo. Thanks, guys. Yep. So I'm going to leave that one to you, and I'm not even going to comment on it, Joe. So I'm going to say all I'm going to say is go Greyhounds.
That you're damn straight, man. Go Loyola, damn it. They're not the only team in Maryland, all right? There's another team there, and they do play basketball. And on a more chalky note, there, I would definitely look to take San Diego State. It's a big number here, but I might look to take them in the first half against Wyoming. It's a low total too, Ralph. Only 120 in that game. 121. I don't know why it's so low, especially when you can probably count on 70, 80 points from San Diego State. Is Wyoming that slow of a tempo team in this country that's why we'd have a 120 total in this one?
Well, San Diego State, now you got to remember, with Brian Dutcher, they really have slowed it down. I mean, they scored 61 against Fresno, and they scored 73 against Poly. I don't know what's going on with Utah State. So, they've been up and down. You look at their conference games, though. Remember, this is the same team that played San Jose State.
Yeah.
Early in December, it was 59-57. So their offense has been hit or miss. Their defense is elite, and they've been shutting down people. So, right. It's been up and down with the Aztecs.
Yeah, 8 of the last 10 in that series, guys, by the way, has gone over. So not that they usually combine for 134 points at least in the last 3 matchups. But to your point, it's hit or miss a lot of times there with San Diego State. So plenty of opportunities, guys, for you to hop over to wagertalk.com right now. Check out Ralph's page there at Wager Talk, the Cal Sports page. Available for you right now. Plays all weekend long, ready to go for you there. And, of course, we'll have the recap for you once again tomorrow. And make sure that you're tailing Ralph on Twitter at CalSportsLV. Always great stuff being posted there, Ralph. So good luck with your Army play, a team you never watched playing. But
hey,
you leave the Patriot League to me, all right? I got the Fubo subscription.
You don't even give me a chance to give a best bet, Joe.
I thought you gave your best bet. I thought you were going to stick with that one.
Army's my situational play.
Oh, it sounded like a good bet to me. I played it already.
I'm not going to the bank with a team that I've never turned on a thing and watched.
All right, go ahead. Give me.
I'm going to give you another team that I left off the board tonight.
Guaranteed winner. Go ahead. What do we got?
And hey, you're going Mountain West, so I'm going to go Mountain West.
Ooh, all right.
It's San Jose State plus the points. Nevada has played very well. I mean, they knocked off Colorado State. They knocked off Boise State.
Yep.
Coming off that loss to St. Mary's, Steve Alford talked about how his offense is getting in gear. And, Nevada wants to run. I mean, Steve Alford was at UCLA. We know the kind of pace of play they had. But the San Jose State, to me, team can run. They just beat Pepperdine at home. They beat New Mexico at home. New Mexico's to that same level of Nevada. And I think the San Jose State team can keep this game close. The Wolfpack have Utah State on deck. So, if you're thinking Mountain West, you're clearly thinking, even though Utah State's 0-3, you're looking at San Diego State as one of the top teams. You're looking at New Mexico. You're looking at Utah State. I don't know if UNLV will stay there or not, but I think it's a look-ahead spot for them. It's a team, San Jose State, that they've normally crushed, and I'm going to go with the Spartans plus the points.
Like that. Nevada laying 11.5, opened up 9.5 right now. The total 152, Ralph. I don't know. The over in playing that one?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
When I got interested in the game and started reading, I clearly do think that the over does have some value.
We could have a track meet there. All right, so there he goes. Army, situationally. All right, and damn, take San Jose State, damn it. That's it. You got best bets now across the board. Plus, you got plays over at wagertalk.com. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, breaking them all down for you, recapping, counting our money, all of that good stuff, and getting you ready once again for another day of college basketball. He is Ralph Michaels, wagertalk.com. Ralph, good luck with the plays, brother. We'll talk again tomorrow.
Joe, talk to you in 23.